Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of our attendees. Welcome everyone to Facebook for Government Q&A with Katie Harbath and Kristy Dalton. My name is Luke Stowe and I serve as the Digital Services Coordinator for the City of Evanston, Illinois. Let's do the fun part right away and have everyone type in your government agency name into the GoToWebinar control panel in that question box so we can see where everyone is from. I see County of Sussex, New Jersey. Let's see what else. Burbank, California. City of Durham, North Carolina. Montgomery County, Maryland. Maricopa County, Arizona. State of Iowa. Texas Department of Information Resources. Let's see what else. City of Roseville, California. Eagle County, Colorado. Green Village, Colorado. Thank you all so much for joining. We had interest as far as away from Hawaii and Australia in this webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available online for viewing. You'll also receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the video recording so you can share with other people who missed the Facebook webinar today. Today's hashtag is hashtag AskFacebookKatie. So hashtag AskFacebookKatie if you want to comment or ask questions on Twitter. Yes, Katie does use Twitter, so it's okay to use Twitter today. Let's go on to our next slide. Wanted to thank our sponsors today, Government Social Media, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We have Kristy Dalton, the founder and CEO of Government Social Media, with us. And then also a great organization, some of you are familiar with, some of you on this call are members of this group already, but ELGL, Emerging Local Government Leaders. They're a terrific organization. I've been active with them in recent months. I wish I had gotten active sooner, but just want to read briefly just some background for those that are not familiar with ELGL. It's a Big Tent local government organization with over 1,000 members in 40 states that aims to connect, communicate, and educate on local government topics. ELGL is entirely membership driven and offers unique, relevant, and timely content related to government. ELGL operates with the support of dedicated volunteers and has no paid staff. Through our growing support network, we work to help attract and retain the brightest aspiring leaders to local government. And to learn more about or join or get involved with ELGL, visit elgl.org or connect with us using a variety of social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. That is one of the great things about ELGL is they're really active on social media. So thank you to ELGL for helping sponsor today's webinar. Katie Harbath, we're excited to have Katie. Many of you know Katie or have worked with Katie already. She's extremely accessible. As I like to say, one day she's hanging out with a head of state, and then the next day she's helping me merge two Facebook pages. So we're really excited to have Katie with us. You can see her contact information there up on the screen. And also Kristy Dalton, CEO, founder of Government Social Media. For those that attended the GSM conference, you obviously know Kristy from there and also from many of her webinars. She now owns her own company, which I believe is about a year and a half old now. And we'll hear more about GSM shortly. So with that, you're all here to listen to Katie. So let's go ahead and get started. The format for today is pretty straightforward. Katie is going to have a short presentation, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, which will cover a lot of the questions that you all pre-submitted. Then we'll go in and talk with Kristy a little bit about the GSM conference, a recap of that, and also future plans for GSM. Then we'll bounce back to Katie, and Katie will do more Q&A with pre-submitted Facebook questions that you all submitted when you registered for the webinar. And then time permitting, we'll try and take some questions on Twitter and also from the GoTo webinar panel. We did receive like over 100 questions. We did our best to cover as much ground as possible with the slides and the Q&A today. Some questions were very specific to agencies, and some of you have we've already followed up with, and others will get to you. So if it's real specific to your agency, we'll try and tackle that one-on-one and try and resolve those issues quickly. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the controls over to Katie so she can share her screen. Katie, did that work okay for you?
Let me take a look here. Are you able to see my presentation?
There, maybe that might
there we
work
go.
better.
No, my screen.
There we go.
All right. Now are we set?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Luke. Thank you, Kristy. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Really happy to be here and take some time to chat with all of you. I want to leave plenty of time for questions, and so today wanted to go over some of the things that kind of really prompted us even doing this webinar was Luke telling me some of the questions that he was getting, particularly around how to administrate a page, how to keep your account secure, a little bit about Business Manager. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk a little bit about our newsfeed algorithm and how that works. I'll go over some best practices, but like I said, I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So we're going to go through this a little bit quickly. That said, I'll be making sure to provide a lot of this information to Luke so that he can share it going forward. As Luke mentioned, and he showed my contact information, I run our politics and government outreach team here at Facebook. So working with a lot of government, elected officials, politicians, etc., on how to best use Facebook. To start big picture, just to have some numbers for you all, we have 1.4 billion monthly active users on Facebook right now around the world. That means that all of these people log into Facebook at least once every 30 days. And I'm showing US numbers. Welcome to the person from Australia. Love your country. Been there many times. So unfortunately, I don't have, I didn't put up other countries' numbers here, but in the United States, we have 186 million monthly active users in the US. 160 million of those visit via mobile. So one thing I really encourage people is that we are a mobile-first company. Everything we build is for mobile before it is for desktop now, and I highly recommend you think about doing the same for your strategies. You want to make sure that anything that you're posting up on Facebook will work well for people, whether they're on a desktop or a regular computer screen. And then 74% of these people return every single day. So it's a place where people are getting a lot of their news and information. Now, a lot of what you do on Facebook starts with your page. And I apologize, some of this is like very basic starting, but I think some of this is good to remember and think about. The first thing with your Facebook pages is you want to make sure you have a name and a URL that will stand the test of time. So you don't want to be putting a year necessarily in your page name, and you want it to be something that's recognizable. I'm going to go into this a lot more, but you want to make sure you set appropriate administrator roles for the different people who are adminning your pages. You want to think about having a comments policy. So you want to make sure, I believe that being as transparent as possible with the fans on your page about how you plan to moderate comments, what's allowed and what's not allowed, is the best way for everybody just to understand what the rules of the road are. So putting that comments policy in your About section can be a great way in which to do that. You want to think about informing the content and any ads you might be doing with page insights, and we'll talk about that very briefly. And then also think about scheduling and targeting page posts, depending upon what it is, who it is that you're trying to reach out to. So let me talk first about administrating your page. I'm sure a lot of you have been having questions about needing to use how to administrate a page and us doing away with gray accounts. I'm going to talk about gray accounts here in a second and why we went away with those. But for many people, in terms of administrating a page, the biggest thing to remember is that there is no longer a separate login in order to manage a page. All pages need to have a profile of some sort that is an admin. And we recommend that anybody that you want to have administrator access to your page, you add all their own individual personal accounts. Now, there's also a business manager option, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But with the personal accounts, these are ones that way you can control who has access when. If somebody leaves, you can remove just that person. But you can also provide specific roles for each of those. So I've got a little graph there on the side. So an admin has full control over everything. An editor can still put up new content, but they can't add new administrators and they can't change settings. A moderator can moderate comments, look at insights, etc., but they can't post new content. And then there's also options for people to just get insights or to run advertising. I highly recommend that if you haven't done this lately, that you go to your page settings and look at everybody who is an admin on the page and make sure, A, they should still be an admin, and B, that they have the right role that you want them to. I also wanted to say a very quick point about adding new admins. Sometimes people have problems with this. The big thing to remember is that when you add somebody, especially via their email address, you don't have to be friends with them, but then you need to use their email address, and you need to make sure their email is publicly searchable on Facebook just for the period of time when you're adding them as an admin. Once you do that, they can turn that back off, but they need to be searchable in order for us to allow you to add them as that administrator without being friends with that person. And then the other thing to remember is once you've added somebody as an admin, make sure they go to facebook.com/pages, and there should be a button up at the top that says invites. They should go there to make sure they accept the invite of being an admin on the page. Now, the other thing to keep in mind as well is that pages don't get hacked. It's the profiles of the people who are adminning the page that could tend to get hacked. So the biggest thing, and something I encourage you to do, is require that anybody who's an admin on the page uses all of our security settings to make sure that you are doing everything possible to prevent being hacked. So the ways to do that are making sure they all have a strong password, so not password 12345. Turn on our login alerts and notifications. What these allow is that if somebody tries to log into your account from an unknown device or unknown location, you will get a text message with a code that you need to use in order to log in. You want to make sure your email account that you use to log into Facebook is secure. So you want to make sure that you have a strong password on that as well, because sometimes how people's Facebook accounts get hacked is their email gets hacked first, and then somebody tries to do a forgotten password reset. Then there's also options for you to use one-time passwords, or if you do get hacked, you can always reach out to us to help, but you can also go to facebook.com/hacked, and we'll walk you through the process of being able to recover your account. Now, a lot of you have probably had a lot of questions about Business Manager and what Business Manager is and why in the world we're making you move to this. So what we're trying to solve for with Business Manager is a couple of different things. The first is to get rid of shared logins, otherwise known as gray accounts. The reason for this is that you're unable to give different permissions to people who have that those logins. If a password gets updated, making sure, it's very hard to make sure everybody has all that information, different people logging in and out, but even more importantly, trying to manage new and old employees, of trying to make sure that as people leave, they don't still have access to the accounts that they shouldn't have access to. It's just a very unsecure environment and much more safer for you to go to personal accounts. The other thing I should mention too is that nobody publicly knows who an admin of a page is. So even though your employees, you might get added as an admin to the page, only the other people who are admins of the page see that, nobody else does. Then there's also, the biggest reason too that Business Manager was created was a lot around being able to manage ad accounts. So you can kind of see there's some of that information, and I've got a whole guide on Business Manager because I could do an entire hour-long presentation just on Business Manager. So I'm going to get Luke that guide that he can share with people. My recommendation for you in terms of thinking through whether or not to use Business Manager versus personal accounts is that if you are running ads, or you're trying to manage multiple pages, Business Manager might be for you. If you've only got one page and you're not running any ads, then you maybe consider just adding a personal account. Some of the benefits, other benefits of Business Manager is that, again, everything is in one place. So if you have a lot of Facebook pages and ad accounts, you can give people access to different ones without sharing the master details of what it is. You can generally work faster and better. It's a lot easier. You reduce the time that it takes to set up new ad accounts and pages. But again, if you're not doing that often, this might not be of benefit to you. You have a lot more control to see who has access to all of these things and change those permissions. And then the other thing here that's different is how you can keep work separate from your personal account, your personal information on Facebook. The way that this works is that you are not. The way that this works is that let's say I am the admin of a business manager of a page, and then I want to invite you, one of you, to be a part of Business Manager, and I send an email to your work email. You will get a link that you will click on, and then you have to log into your personal account to authenticate yourself. You do that just once to authenticate who you are. After that, you'll be able to go anytime you want to log in and use Business Manager. You can go to business.facebook.com, and it looks different. It's a complete different color. You can manage all of your work stuff there. You can get all of your notifications for the pages and stuff you're doing to your work email address versus your personal one. So that's what we mean by keeping work separate, but it's not a completely new login experience. You're still using your personal account to authenticate who you are and to be your login. Now, I know this is, I'll apologize ahead of time for, I know that Business Manager is incredibly complicated, and it's not the easiest thing in the world in which to administrate. So I am going to share that guide with everyone, but do think about whether or not, you don't necessarily have to use Business Manager, but if you think it's beneficial to you, it's something to consider. Now to go into content really quickly, a couple of things to think about when it comes to content on your Facebook pages. One is to remember that most people, pages are a source of information, not necessarily a destination. So most people are going to get your posts in the Facebook newsfeed. You want to try to think about being as creative and as authentic as possible, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Keeping things short, timely, visual, posting updates about once a day, and I'll explain more why here on the next slide, and then hosting these regular Q&A sessions or engaging with fans. So one of the questions I get a ton is, how does the Facebook newsfeed algorithm work? Some of you might have heard this be referenced to as edge rank. We honestly do not use that term. That is not something we use at all within Facebook. But one thing that we have been trying to do more of is be more transparent about how our newsfeed algorithm works. So you can always go to news.fb.com and look at our blogs there. You can look at all the past posts about newsfeed. But this little formula here that I'm going to go through is kind of an easy way to sort of think about this. There are tens of thousands of different ways that we think about how we show somebody something in newsfeed. But these 5 are good ones to think about. Every time you put a post up on your page for every single one of your fans, we look at a couple of different things to determine if that post should be shown to them or not. The first thing we look at is, have they engaged with you recently? And that's over the last couple of days. So that's why it's important that you post on a regular basis. So that way, because if people aren't engaging with you, they're going to be engaging with somebody else. Then we look at the post overall. How much engagement is the post getting? We look at the page. Is the page one that on a regular basis they tend to get a lot of engagement? Then we look at the type of post. Is it a type of post that people, sometimes we know people like to click on video or photos or links or even longer form content. So I highly recommend you even think about mixing things up in terms of the types of content that you're putting up. And then we look at recency. We look at how new the post is, but also, are you talking about something a lot of other people are talking about? These are all things to kind of take into consideration when working with the newsfeed. But the biggest thing to know is this is something we're always sort of tweaking, we're always testing new things. And anytime we make major updates, we do put a post up in our newsroom so that people can know what that is and what our thinking is behind it. So to go into some of the content that we've seen work really well, there's 4 different buckets to think about. There's visual, authentic, informative, and social. So the first is really thinking about how can you engage with your fans on Facebook. Some of the ways that are working really well is uploading video directly to Facebook. Videos are doing incredibly well. And it doesn't have to be highly produced. Some of the best videos are via just an iPhone. You want to highlight unique photos and original graphics and behind-the-scenes content that you can do. Talking about behind-the-scenes content, you want to share your story. You want to share what is happening. You want to give people updates about, if you're running a page for a mayor, a little bit about what it's like to be on them for a day. Who are the people that are helping to keep the city running? What are aspects or vantage points that you can give them that others couldn't? Excuse me, can't talk today. Facebook is also great for communicating during disasters. We're seeing this in Texas right now, where a lot of city government pages are using Facebook to post information about where people can get help, how people can stay safe. You might think about right now, you know, we're going into tornado season soon. What are, and you know, summer and all that. What are the different types of posts you can do to help people to stay prepared during those events? But then you also want to use photos and videos to share, you know, what are the responders doing, use hashtags to increase exposure and discussion. We get asked a lot, you know, during disasters, how can Facebook help to help promote content? We have so many different organizations that would want us to promote their content that it's really hard for us to pick one over the other. And the thing that we find is that if it's a major event, you know, we will find it to be trending in that area, and that content tends to be seen more anyways. So we don't have a way of where we're going to pick and choose different pages that we're going to boost that content during a disaster. We find that our algorithm tends to do it already. Now, we do have some tools, such as our safety check that some of you might have heard about, but we tend to use those only in events such as the earthquake that happened in Nepal. Events that really affect a huge number of people, and natural disasters that do, where we want people to be able to mark that they're safe so that their friends and family know that. But I also have this guide on tips for how government agencies and stuff can use Facebook during disasters, and I'll make sure to share that with Luke as well, to share with all of you. Then finally, you want to think about making your content social. Make sure you're tagging other pages. Make sure you're using hashtags again. You don't have to use hashtags all the time, but if others are using it and it's appropriate, definitely think about doing that. And then think about engaging your fans. We can whitelist your page for the Q&A tool if you don't already have it. But this way, you know, this is an example of a mayor doing questions. People will ask them in the comments, and then she can reply to them right then and there. Really quickly, I'm thinking about how to measure success of what you're doing on your page. While page likes are important, the number that I think is actually more important is post reach. So how many unique people over the last 7 days are seeing your content? And for really good pages, you're going to have those that are getting a lot more reach than even number of fans that they have. And then you want to look at engagement, because the more engagement you have on your page, the more reach you're going to get. Then you also want to think about the time of day that you're posting on Facebook. Now, if there's news breaking, you absolutely want to post then and there. But we find most people are on Facebook between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And so you want to consider shifting your posting strategy to be later in the day. So that way you can be showing your content when more people might be logging into their Facebook account. Now, I'm guessing a lot of you don't necessarily want to be working that late at night, so you can schedule posts on Facebook. When you're putting the post into your Facebook page, there's a little clock icon in the lower left-hand corner. You can click on that and go ahead and schedule the post for what time you want it to go live. Before any of you ask, yes, there has been a bug about scheduling posts that happened last week, but I think it's been fixed. But then you can also target posts by, if you have under 5,000 fans, you can target posts by location and language. If you have more than 5,000 fans, you can also see this additional targeting, such as by age, interests, etc. So I flew through that really quickly, but I want to make sure Kristy has time to talk a little bit about GSM Con, and then have plenty of time to take questions. Luke, do I have to re-give you access, or can you take it back? Stop sharing screen. Luke?
Hey, Katie, this is Kristy.
Hey.
Luke may have been cut off there. I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to go ahead and show my screen and just dive into
Awesome.
My slides here, if that's all right. And I'll make my slides available to everyone at the conclusion. Okay, Katie, can you see my screen up?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to dive in here. I see everybody has some questions coming in here. I want to make sure, probably after I speak, I want to make sure, first of all, Katie, we're getting a lot of questions about that live Q&A tool, and hopefully we can dive into that. But I just have a few slides to show you. I know that you're here to hear Katie speak, and so I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to let you know about a couple of resources that are available to you and some things happening in the works. But it's my pleasure to be here with Katie, and also thank you to Luke. It was Luke's idea to have this webinar, and I think that resources like this for this audience are extremely helpful, and a lot of times these things just come about by the initiative of Govies just like you. So thank you to Luke. A lot of you know my background already. I was in government for over 10 years from various size agencies, ultimately launching the social media program for the city of Reno, Nevada. And I also have an online video show at govgirl.com, and you can also find it at youtube.com/govgirl. I have a video about most social media platforms. I've been slow in posting the videos lately, but that's all going to change here very soon. Recently, I took a step back from government and worked as the new media director of eRepublic, the company behind government technology and emergency management and governing. And I learned a lot about how private industry uses social media, particularly how private industry uses Facebook, and I try to blend that into the different things that I do. Right now, you can find me at Government Social Media. It's my company where we work directly with government agencies on strategy and training. And one of the things recently that we organized was an event called the Government Social Media Conference and Expo in Reno, Nevada. You see the images on the screen on the left. There is Katie presenting on the general session stage. On the right, we have Jen Davies from the city of Las Vegas. She manages the social media program there with a team, as well as Derek Chan from the California Department of Motor Vehicles, the online business services manager, and also manages social media. This event was really an experiment to see, do we have enough social media managers to fill up a room? And we found that we had to keep adding rooms on because so many people actually registered for the event and participated. It was pretty exciting. Just wanted to give you a couple of high-level highlights of the event because we are planning an event for next year, and I wanted to share that with you as well. We had 365 participants, 55 speakers, 30, maybe just over 30 sessions, and we used it really as a platform for the social networks, social companies, and individuals to make key announcements. And so Katie was able to make the announcement about the verified Facebook pages. Hootsuite made an announcement about the fact that they're integrating with Archive Social, archiving social media tool just for government agencies. And so if you have their, I believe it's their pro account, you have access to use Archive Social's features as a government agency. And we also had James Waterman from the Google team talking about the innovation labs for government and how agencies can get on board with that. Just wanted to briefly share with you about GSMCon 2016 to put it on your calendars as a fantastic resource for you. And we have the date set as April 5th through 8th, 2016. We are holding it again in Reno, Nevada. Honestly, Reno is my new hometown now. It's where GSM is based, and I want Reno to be to GSMCon what Austin is to South by Southwest. I want this to be the home for the event, but we are going to be looking at doing regional conferences, smaller regional conferences on the off season from the GSMCon event, particularly to places and to states where travel is extremely restricted, so we can make sure and share the content regionally as well. We're going to add in some off-site activities, so we bring people to downtown Reno. We offer transportation for any attendees. We're going to have some repeat sessions and also some new sessions as well. We had a lot of feedback on the sessions. Next year, I want to have a session particularly on social media security and also more platform-specific sessions. So having an entire hour-long session on LinkedIn use, an entire session on Facebook. Talk to Katie a little bit about having additional resources available for you there for next year for Facebook, with however that turns out to be one-on-one sessions or breakout sessions. We want more of it. We had this activity called a Power Talk, where it was basically a room where we had a bunch of round tables and there was a particular topic at each table, and they were facilitated by govies or those from private industry, and it was really a chance for people to have a discussion one-on-one with each other on best practices. And it turns out that people actually absolutely loved that. We're going to expand on that, have more tables, more Power Talks, because we really like that one-on-one interaction. Another thing we saw at the conference was that private industry vendors really are starting to see government as a viable market for their social media tools. So they're starting to build out, and I think you'll see this as we go over the next couple of years, services and features that are geared just towards government agencies, which is really good for you guys. One of the things I've learned about social media is that it's just not fair. We can't all be these lottery commissions who have it easy. They just post pictures of people with these big, fantastic checks. And in light of this, I've seen so much creativity as far as what agencies' strategies are using for content on Facebook, content on Twitter, and being on social media. Coincidentally, actually, behind the scenes, lottery commissions, they have a whole different set of challenges that they're facing with social media, like, for instance, people understanding what they're actually using the money for and the misconception that they're not using it for education and things like that. So everyone doesn't have a great time on social media, but I've seen so much creativity. The formula that I sort of created for this is the audience perception of boring is directly proportional to the amount of effort required on social media on your part to focus on social media and to make it interesting for people listening. So entities like yours require extra creativity on social media. And this is something that we all have these examples, we all have these best practices. Let's get people talking with each other to share some of this. I do think that you are the government superheroes. You are very important to your government agency. You are the front line for customer service for many departments, and you ultimately serve the public. So I think that we should work very hard to provide more resources for you. And GSMCon is just an annual event. What can we do in the meantime to have resources for you? One thing that we're going to do is we're going to start a GSM chat, a Twitter chat with hashtag GSM chat. It's going to be bi-weekly chat for government social media managers. Now, your title doesn't have to be government social media manager. You might just manage a particular program, but you want to look at how you can have some involvement with social, or maybe you're a government leader, you're looking to get more social. Or you're a PIO, you're a marketer, you're a webmaster within government, and you want to start talking more with other social media managers. So it'll be a bi-weekly chat. That means every other week. We're starting next Thursday, June 4th, for the first GSM chat. And it's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Central time, and 4 p.m. Eastern time, excuse me. It's during the workday because I feel that there is value to your organization in letting you participate in this Twitter chat because we're really going to be sharing resources. We're going to be communicating with each other. We're going to be focusing the particular chats on various topics. We'll have an associated webpage down the line so you can check it out. But the first topic for next Thursday is going to be government social media resources. So this is your opportunity to share all of the resources that you have. We'll be sharing some as well. We'll be manning it on our side at Government Social Media, resources for things like what are the best conferences you attend to learn about government social media, what are some of the best practices you have, what about white papers and downloadables, what are your best resources for government social media policies, and really start sharing with one another. We're also going to be launching a GSM podcast within the next month. We'll make the announcement at next week's GSM chat so you know where to find that podcast. Also, and the really exciting news to come out of GSMCon that we announced is about a member association. We're in the planning stages of launching a member association just for government social media managers. If it relates to your job responsibilities in some way, you can be a part of this member association. We're working on it and we're planning for a summer 2015 launch. And we really want you to be a part of determining what this association will look like. What would you like as far as the member benefits? Do you want to have a job board? Do you want to have a forum, a listserv, a monthly webinar, a website? What do you want? So we're currently developing a survey. We're going to share it with all of you on this webinar. We're going to share it with all the participants of GSMCon, and we really want to get that feedback from you so we can shape this member association to be exactly what you're looking for. I want to thank you. You can email me directly at Kristy@governmentsocialmedia.com. My website is governmentsocialmedia.com. You can also find me at govgirl.com or use #govgirl or gsmcon.com. So that's a lot of websites there, but many opportunities to connect with me. I'm going to bring it back over to Luke if he's on the line.
Hey, Kristy, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good. I couldn't get unmuted fast enough earlier, so thank you for helping cover. I appreciate that. So we have about 20 minutes left and about 15 or 20 pre-submitted questions that we want to cover with Katie. So we'll kind of go very quickly. Maybe we'll shoot for about a minute or so per answer. So we'll make this kind of the speed round. But I just wanted to mention real quickly, because sometimes there's a lot of you'll hear government agencies, oh, our organic reach is declining, or we're thinking about leaving Facebook and whatnot. And I really feel that Facebook, as Gary Vaynerchuk, the famous social media guy, says, Facebook is just now hitting their stride. And this is somebody who lives and breathes social media every day, and that's how his feelings on Facebook. And I just wanted to share one example. Over the weekend, there was an off-duty Evanston police officer. He happened to notice a gentleman who was at the top of a parking garage, a 6-story parking garage, who was about to take his life. This off-duty police officer and a number of other police officers were able to literally surprise him and grab him off the ledge, and there's video footage of this as well. It's just an amazing story and amazing act of courage on this officer's part. And I happened to share this last night. It became public knowledge after 5 p.m. yesterday. Within an hour, I shared it on Facebook, and I took a snapshot. And even though we only have about 6,300 fans or likes on our Facebook page, this post has already reached over 14,000 people, and that was just as of early this morning, so it's still growing. So we're over 200% organic reach and still rising. So granted, this type of story doesn't happen every day, although we did have a similar story just a couple days ago that got like 350% organic reach. So it is still possible to have incredible organic reach without even spending. We do boost posts here in Evanston, but in these cases, we don't even bother boosting posts because they're so popular organically. So with that said, I want to jump into the first question for Katie, and that is talking about verified status. There's been a lot of buzz about verified status, and Katie, I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're trying to find a way to make it easier so that excuse me, city governments can get their pages verified by Facebook. So there's excuse me, one second. Okay, I'm better now. There's a couple of different ways to get verified status. So we've created this short link that will take you to a forum that goes right to our page ops team on Facebook. bit.ly.fbgovverify. There, if you need to include either like your articles of incorporation, a tax-exempt ID, a letter or certification are acceptable. That's just for us because we need our page ops people. They don't work with you all on a regular basis. They need to verify that you are the authorized representatives of that page in order to make sure we're verifying the right one. If you run into any problems, please feel free to shoot me a note or email gov@fb.com, and we can try to walk you through it, or we can also try to submit some of those verifications ourselves. But I really ask you to just kind of help save my inbox. If you are able to do it through the form, I would really, really appreciate it. But please don't hesitate that if you do run into problems to shoot me a note. There's a question here about if verification aids search results for pages. It certainly helps it to come up at the top of search results if people are searching for your page. But for the most part, it's there to really just help people to know that it's the authentic, it's the official entity of the city or something that the city is actually organizing versus a community page that might be run by citizens.
Okay, great. And then Katie, I just wanted to share, there's the actual verified status form right there. It's really easy. I mean, literally, if you have the form, the articles, or the tax ID letter, it literally takes like 2 minutes to fill out the form. The important thing
and we're trying to...
Go ahead, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, we've run into a couple of hiccups. I think it's getting a little bit better. I just ask you to bear with us as we do this. Once we announce this, as you can imagine, we had a huge influx of people not only sending us wanting to get verified, but having other questions. And I promise you we want to help you, but I'm only one person, so we're trying to do this and take care of it as quickly as we can. So I do ask for patience as well as we keep trying to do this.
And thank you, Katie, for your leadership on getting that done. Previously, it was only like sports teams and celebrities and really huge entities like the White House that were able to get verified status. But thanks to Katie's efforts, working with the page ops team, we were able to get that done for state, county, and city governments. I wrote an article for GovTech magazine. They have a new site, govtech.com/social. So I wrote an article. I just wanted to give a mention for that site. Feel free to check out the article, and I highlight some reasons why I think the verification stuff is so important. Another question here, we have page names versus username. What's the difference? And then also about merging pages.
Sure. I'll just kind of go through all of these. The page name versus username. So the page name is that name that appears right by your profile picture on the page. So it might be City of Green Bay Government or City Government of Green Bay. Your username is that URL for your page. So facebook.com/government of Green Bay, or like mine is katieharbath.com or facebook.com/katieharbath. So that's the difference between the two. You can absolutely merge pages. If they're of the same name, the merge can happen right away. If they are different names, we notify fans, and then it takes about a week to 2 weeks then for us to actually merge those two pages together. In terms of restrictions on page names, we need to make sure that we don't allow just general location names. So not just like City of Green Bay. I keep using Green Bay because that's where I'm from. Because we have on Facebook, we've actually created these location hubs so that people can go to a location and see a lot of different information about it. Plus, we found that people wanted to know more specifics about who the entity was that's running these pages. So your page name really needs to be like City of Green Bay Government, City Government of Green Bay, Mayor's Office, it could be your mayor's name. There's a lot of other different options there, and if you have questions on that, please feel free to reach out. Who gets the name if more than one wants that exact same name? That's not something that we can get in the middle of, and it could prevent verification if that's happening. If you have questions on that, if you're having a hard time sort of navigating who should have what page names, happy to try to help with that there, but that's something you're going to have to sort out on your side versus we tend not to get into third-party disputes. And then if you want to change or set a username for your page, go to facebook.com/username. To do that, if you've already changed it once before and you need to change it again and you have over 200 fans, just shoot us a note you can submit it through the Help Center, or you can shoot us a note at gov@fb, and we can try to take care of it as well.
Okay, great. Another question here is, can you please provide an overview of Facebook's policy on intellectual property and reporting cyberbullying? I included the facebook.com/help as maybe a good starting point. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the intellectual property, you can search for that there in the Help Center, and there's a form that you could submit. So if you find a page that's using your city logo or stuff, or like using pictures of your mayor and it's not your mayor, things of that, those are best reported through the intellectual property form, and you can do that through the Help Center. And then cyberbullying, the best thing to do there is if you see that post that somebody's doing, you can click in the upper right-hand corner and make sure you go through our reporting flow so that that can get to our teams to go ahead and take a look at that.
Okay, great. Another question here is, what one piece of advice do you offer government info officers for most effectively using Facebook to communicate with citizens? I think you kind of touched on some of this during your presentation already.
Yeah, I don't have, like, there's not necessarily one silver bullet, but I would say the biggest thing is you want to be posting and engaging on a regular basis. So a great thing to think about doing is creating what we call a conversation calendar. Look over the next 3 to 6 months. What are the major holidays happening? When are there parades happening in your town? When are there other festivals? When are there different things happening, city council meetings, whatever it might be? And kind of put those on a calendar and take a look at it and think through, what's the type of content that I might want to do around those events? What do I need to prepare? When might be a good time to do a Q&A? When might be a good time to do a video? But taking that time to do that more strategic thinking can oftentimes help save you time in the end.
I think you touched on this a little bit too already, but how can municipal Facebook pages be better representing the geographic place pages created by Facebook, those generic place pages?
I'll be 100% honest, it's something that we're actually working on. So I don't have a great answer for it yet, but what I can say, it's on our radar screen, and we do want to make that better.
That would be great. I also think that verified status helps distinguish pages from the generic place pages too. Another question here is there a possibility to spread emergency posts such as natural disaster information broader without paying for promotion? I included in parentheses there's the Amber Alerts, which I know you guys launched that earlier this year, which I think has been effective. I think they just announced yesterday Canada is now included in that as well. And then also Safety Check, which you touched on earlier.
Yeah, so Amber Alerts is available throughout the U.S. We did just launch it in Canada. We're looking at doing that in other places. I'll share the guide on the natural disaster information and how you might think about using Facebook in that. But like I mentioned, this is something we're still trying to figure out what we as a product can do, and being able to scale it globally, and when we choose to kind of deploy things like Safety Check. But we also don't want to be in the business of picking certain content over others, because there's a lot of different people that could potentially say they have the authority of providing information when there's a disaster. So I'll certainly share that guide so that people can see different best practices for how to do that.
Great, thank you. How exactly does the new business manager function for government staff managing government pages? I think you've pretty much touched on that, and then also gray accounts, which you've touched on a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I think the best thing for me there is to share with the guide with everybody, because that'll explain it all much more.
We're definitely looking forward to that guide on the business manager. That will help clarify a lot of things. Let's see, what do we have here? What are some search tools that can be used for data mining within Facebook? Any thoughts on that?
The biggest thing to think about is you can do just general searches for certain names in the Facebook search tool and just see any public posts that mention those terms. Those are the best things to do, but also take a look at audience insights for some of your pages. You can get access to that through the ads manager, and you don't even have to run ads to get access to that, but that can give you a lot of different information, though it will depend on how big your fan base is, depending upon how much information we can give you, because there's a threshold to make sure that we're protecting people's privacy.
Okay, great. When do you anticipate Facebook will allow us to view the news feeds of pages we manage via Facebook Pages app on iOS mobile device? I realize you're not the product manager for the iOS app, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I know I've asked this question before internally, and I'm afraid I just don't have a great answer here. My recommendation would be, consider doing interest lists to try to follow, but I know this isn't perfect, and I apologize, but I don't have a time frame on it either.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation for blurring images, addresses, and videos used on Facebook? And then also I want to just open this up as an opportunity to talk a little bit more about Facebook video, which seems to kind of be on fire recently.
So I'm afraid I don't have a recommendation on blurring images and addresses and stuff. You'd have to do that on your video software, whatever you're using to edit that. But in terms of getting people to watch Facebook videos, the shorter the better. On average, people are watching about 15 seconds worth of video on Facebook. You want to make sure the beginning is something that is compelling enough to make people kind of stop scrolling through their news feed when they're seeing it in autoplay. And I also recommend, too, sometimes the best videos I've seen have been ones just taken with the iPhone. So what I would recommend is go ahead and try. Take video. Just because you take a video with your phone doesn't mean you have to use it. But the more that you practice, the more that you'll get a sense of what good video might be and what might not be. You also just don't know what will happen. So I had an instance with in India with I was doing this thing with the Prime Minister's team there, and we were talking about this exact same thing too, and we were recommending just videotape anything that, speeches that the Prime Minister's doing, events. And they did that, and then they caught this really cute interaction between the Prime Minister and a kid that they put up on Facebook and became one of their most watched videos. So you just never know what's going to happen, and I recommend just trying it, because just because you record it doesn't mean you have to put it up on Facebook.
Okay. I know you're not an attorney, but do you want to talk just briefly about, kind of the overall philosophy on First Amendment issues and dealing with negative comments and blocking a commenter and so forth?
Yeah, I think having that comments policy is a great way for you to make sure you're transparent about what it is how you're going to manage the page. But the way I describe this to a lot of people is, you've got rules and regulations in terms of how people can protest. They can't sit in your office necessarily and scream at you all day while you're working, but they can be out on the sidewalk. And so, you can kind of think about the same thing with your pages. Just because you block them from your page doesn't mean you're blocking them from Facebook overall. They can still post what they want in their own profile. They could create their own page. They can't be impersonating or violating our terms and conditions. But you have to think about that. Every city's different. Every city has different laws. So definitely check with your lawyers. But that's the way that I've seen some people try to do that. In terms of the filters not working, there's so many different reasons that could be happening. It could be a bug. It could be something else. So it's hard for me to address that question specifically.
Okay. There were a couple questions kind of like this. I would like for our sheriff to be able to post directly to our feed using his personal account. Is this possible?
The only way to potentially do that is would be to turn on so that anybody can post to the page, or else you might want to have the page post, let's say you want to do a question, a Q&A, the page can start that Q&A and then he can go to that page and answer in the comments that question, but there's not a way to have a whole new post appear as him without allowing other posts to the page. Now what you could do is allow people to post to the page but have them all be hidden, and then you just go and you approve only the sheriff's ones to show up in that news feed. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's one option.
Okay. There's lots of questions about the future for government pages with Facebook. Discounts for boosting, feature enhancements like polls. There were polls. I think polls went away. Algorithm changes. Any thoughts on maybe the next 12 months and if we can expect changes to government pages?
So I can't say a lot, but what I can say is that this is absolutely on my radar screen. I've been talking to a lot of you about this. It's something that's on the radar screen here in Facebook, and we're trying to think the best ways of what we can do for this. I don't know what those things are yet. We're still honestly working through them, working through what the engineering might be, all of that stuff. So I'm working on it. I promise you about that, and we will share things as we get more details.
And to your credit, Katie, we asked a lot of questions. In addition to the regular questions, we asked, what features do you want to see in Facebook? What can't you do today that you'd like to do with Facebook? And so all that content and that feedback we're going to share with Katie, and she can share it with her team to make future enhancements and help on that front. What are your thoughts on hashtag use in Facebook? Is it effective, and how many should we use?
Just so we can get through these a lot faster, it can be effective if you're using a hashtag that a lot of others are using, and I would recommend you only use one per post.
Okay, and then this is the last of the pre-submitted questions. Explain post targeting gender, geographic location. I think you've touched on this, the expire posts. This is really relevant. I think the geographic thing is really interesting for state agencies who want to focus on a particular area of the state.
Yeah, so if you do post targeting, it means it'll show to those people that you chose to target just in the newsfeed, but it'll show to anybody in the page timeline. And then if you choose to expire post, that just stops it from showing in newsfeed. It still will remain on your agency page.
Okay, great. We've got a couple minutes left. I'm actually going to go to 5 after the hour, if it's okay. If anyone has to drop off at the top of the hour, I realize you might have.
Actually, Luke, I'm afraid I'm going to have to drop off at the top of the hour. So, but if you want, what I'm happy to do is, I know you guys have a ton of questions. Luke, if you want to compile those,
Sure.
I'm happy to try to do. We can answer some of those, and if you want to share them with everybody in sort of a Q&A fashion afterwards, or we can try to find a way to do that. That might be the best way to do this.
That'd be great. I don't want to keep you, Katie, so thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. You're in a lot of demand all over the world, so thank you so much for spending an hour with us. And then I'll get additional questions over to you as well as that other content and data.
Great, and I just want to say thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I look forward to keep helping you all.
Thank you, Katie. A couple quick questions that I think either Kristy or I can address in our last couple minutes. There's lots of great feedback on Twitter, by the way. Thank you so much for those that have been weighing in on Twitter. Will the presentation be available as a PDF? I'll work with Kristy and Katie and get all of our slides together into one presentation. We'll have it available as a PDF. We'll get it up on SlideShare. And then, of course, the webinar video recording will be available as well. There's a couple other questions here that are probably best handled by Katie, which I'll share with her. There's some that are specific on verification, which I can reach out to people, and if I can't help, Katie can help as well. Kristy, were there any questions that you saw out there that that either you or I might be able to address?
Cool. I think most of them are pretty Katie specific. I definitely want to get her the question of how do agencies get access to the live Q&A tool, and also are state agencies able to get the Facebook verification as well? I heard that question coming up a couple times. Yeah,
the Q&A question came up multiple times, both in our dashboard and then also on Twitter too. So we'll get more information out to everybody about that, because that definitely is a hot topic. And then also we wanted to mention Katie and Facebook teamed up with GovLoop to put together a Facebook guide for government. I think it's really well done. There's a lot of best practices. There's a number of, I think, 6 different case studies in there, other resources. So I included a link here to download the Facebook guide. For anyone who's interested in taking a look at that. So with that, we're just about at the top of the hour. I want to thank everyone for joining us from all over and for your questions. The one thing, Katie had to drop off, but the one thing I wanted to say about Katie is that she's always the first to admit. Sometimes Facebook doesn't always get everything right, and she's always the first to admit it, and then she takes a very pragmatic approach and wants to get those things fixed and solved for us. So I really appreciate her efforts over the year. And then also wanted to mention thank you to Kristy for being a part of this webinar. I said a few weeks ago at GSM Con, I'm not sure that there's been a greater champion for the use of social media in government than Kristy, especially when it comes to trying to avoid being boring and avoiding jargon and other things. So thank you, Kristy, for your participation in this webinar. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
No, thank you, Luke. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to reading some more of the questions and seeing Katie's responses to them.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Kristy, and thank you everyone for joining us. We'll make this webinar recording available to everybody, and feel free to contact Kristy, Katie, or I if we can be of further assistance to you all.